Hello, good evening, and welcome to this first session of our sustainable food cycle that we are organizing at Fundesplai. Thank you very much for being here today. I would also like to thank Mariana and Sofia who are with us in this session today. At Fundesplai, we have been working for a long time on how we can raise awareness about the climate challenges, social challenges as well, through the way we eat. And at our site in El Prat de Llobregat, we have an exhibition, and I will show you a video of this exhibition later on. And we also conduct many education activities at schools and other type of educational centers. And we also organize webinars such as this one, focused on this very important topic. In fact, this meeting is within the Eat Life project from the EU, from the LIFE program, and the goal is to meet the goals of the European Green Deal, particularly the From Farm to Fork strategy. And these objectives are mainly to reduce the carbon footprint of food and to ensure the availability and access to food for everyone with a healthier food system that is also more available to everyone. And before giving the floor to Mariana, Sofia, I will show you a video of this exhibition I mentioned before.
Muy bien, gracias.
So,
Pues bien, coincidiendo con el
the
Día
UNESCO celebrated in December the World Day of Food and Sustainable Food, and we thought it would be appropriate to organize a cycle of conferences where we can speak about the future of sustainable food, and we mainly focus on one of the key points highlighted by the UNESCO, that is the role of education and having a culture that helps us think strategically about the futures we want for our food system. And for this reason, in this webinar, we are going to focus on the relevance of eco-design as a key concept for food systems that are based on circular economy. So the environment is part of the food design, and this means minimizing the use of natural resources and therefore reducing the environmental impact of food. And today we have with us Sofía Garín, project manager at the sustainable consultancy inèdit, and she will tell us about the current situation of eco design, mainly regarding the national and European European
e também
legislations
algumas
and
questões dessa
different
estratégia
strategies based on
econômica circular
sustainable
baseadas em
packaging.
packaging sustentável.
Then
E
we also
depois,
have with us
nós agora
Mariana
a Mariana
Eidler, who's
Eidler, que
the
também nos
manager
acompanha
of
hoje,
the
que é
Food
diretora
Design Lab
de
at
Food
the
Design Lab
ELISAVA
pela Escola de
Design and
Desenho e
Engineering
Engenharia
School,
ELISAVA e também é
and she
cofundadora
is
de FOR,
the co-founder
de
of
Food
Food
Design
Design
Organization, e
Organization,
Mariana
the
nos hablará desde una
FOR.
perspectiva del food
And she
design,
will
pensando
tell us
también
about
el
food
food design como un
design
nuevo
and
campo de
its
acción
role
y su
to
papel frente a los
face all
retos
the current
medioambientales. Y
environmental
Mariana también nos presentará algunos
challenges,
ejemplos
and
de
she
productos
will
muy
tell us about
innovadores
new
hechos con
biomaterials. And
materiales.
please
Así que
remember
solo un pequeño
that you
detalle,
can
recordaros que
write
podéis
your
dejar
remarks on
comentarios,
the
¿vale? En el
chat.
chat. Y
That means that
así,
you
a lo
don't
largo de la
have to wait
presentación,
until
esto
the
estará
end of the
bastante final y así vamos a ir
presentations
compilando
to ask
todas y
your
después
questions.
podemos
So you
acudir
can
en
have
la
your
parte final
remarks
cuando
and
las dos acabemos de
questions
sentar, podemos
already on
acudir
the chat.
a las
And now we will
preguntas y
give the
comentarios. Así
floor
que,
to
Sofía,
Sofia.
cuando
Thank
quieras.
you very much, Barbara, and I would
Perfecto,
like to
muchísimas
thank
gracias, Bárbara,
Fundesplai as
y a
well
la
for their
Fundación también por
invitation.
la
I
invitación.
am going
Bueno,
to
pues
explain,
yo
as
voy a
Barbara
empezar a
mentioned,
explicaros, como bien nos
this
contaba
part
Bárbara,
that
esta
is
parte
linked
más
to
vinculada
eco
al
design.
diseño,
That
al
means
ecodiseño,
how
más
do we
específico, es decir, cómo
include
incluimos también la economía
circular
circular
economy
como
as
una
a key
estrategia
strategy
fundamental para
to
hacer precisamente esa
make more
parte de
responsible
eleccionar, tomar
decisions
responsables
when
cuando
we
hacemos toda
are
la fase
involved in
de
the
diseño
design process
vinculado,
of
en este
food
caso, a los
packaging.
envases
So
alimentarios.
that's
Por lo
what I'm
tanto,
going
hoy
to
hablaremos
focus
específicamente
on
de esto. Como
today,
bien nos
and
decíamos,
you
podéis
can
dejar las
write your
preguntas ahí,
questions
pero
on the
también os
chat, and I'll
recomendaría en caso
also
de que después
be
queráis hacer un
receiving
contacto más
questions if you
directo.
like
Bueno,
by
yo soy
through
project manager
my
en inèdit, como
email.
bien decíamos.
So
inèdit nació
inèdit
como parte de economía
started with the
circular,
concept of circular
teniendo dos
economy,
vertientes
and we
fundamentales. Por
have
un lado, los
environmentalists,
ambientólogos, que
and
hacen
we
más la
also
parte de
have
cuantificación
designers in
ambiental, y
our
por otro
team.
lado, la rama
We
de diseño. Por
have
lo
a
tanto, nos centramos
multidisciplinary
en esta visión sistémica
systemic view
multidisciplinar
where we try and
en la que
cross
tratamos de
data,
cruzar los datos.
because
Y
as
como
we
antes
have
también
already
se ha
heard,
mencionado
it's
previamente,
necessary
es
to
necesario
have
tener también
this
esta
view
visión
of
de la cadena de
the
valor, del
life
ciclo de vida,
cycle
y tener incluso
with
estos
quantitative
datos
data
cuantitativos que nos
that
permiten
enable us
hacer
to look at
referencia a
the
emisiones de CO2 u
CO2
otro tipo de
emissions
indicadores,
and
como pueda ser
other
huella hídrica,
items
etcétera,
that
y que
impact
afectan a las
our
decisiones que
decisions
tomamos como
as
diseñadoras.
designers.
Bien,
First of all,
voy a
I'd like to
pasar
give you the
a
context.
daros
Why is this
primero un
so
contexto, ¿no?
important?
¿Por qué es
What is
esto tan
happening today
relevante?
in
¿Qué
the
está
world?
pasando ahora
We
mismo en el
know
mundo? Bueno,
that
para empezar,
the
sabemos que el mundo es
world is
únicamente un
only circular in
8,4% circular. ¿Qué significa esto?
8.4%.
Esto
This
significa
means
que la
only
cantidad de recursos que extraemos,
8.4% of the
únicamente el 8,4%,
resources
vuelve a
are
ser introducido
reintroduced
dentro de las
in the
cadenas de
value
valor.
chain. The
Todo lo
rest
demás es
is thrown
desechable.
away.
Esto
This means
produce un
that we are
sobreexplotamiento tremendo en
over
el planeta que no podemos asumir, porque es
using the planet,
absolutamente
and this is
insostenible, tanto a
unsustainable
nivel
from an
medioambiental como a
environmental,
nivel
economic, and
económico y, por
social
supuesto, también a
standpoint.
nivel social. Y, por lo
So
tanto, ya incluimos en
these are the
esta
three
visión de
pillars of
economía circular
sustainability:
los
the
tres pilares de la
environment, the
sostenibilidad: el
economy,
medioambiental,
and
el económico
all the
y, como decía
social
también, el
aspects.
social. Además de todo esto, estamos
We also
teniendo
have
un
this
push
push that
tremendo
comes
que viene
from
dado por
laws
las
that
leyes que afectan
impact
al
the food
sector
service
general del food
industry and the
service y más
packaging
específico también
industry.
aquel
We
de los
have a
envases.
general
Por un lado, tenemos
legal
un marco
framework
genérico
that is
europeo que
based
viene
on the
dado por
Green
el
Deal, and
Pacto
then
Verde
we have
Europeo y
the
el Plan de
Circular
Economía Circular.
Economy Plan,
Aquí se
and we
establecen
have
objetivos de
goals
cara al
for
2030, pero es
2030, but
responsabilidad
each
de cada
member
país
state
de
has
la Unión
to
Europea el
transpose this
traducirlo y
to their
trasladarlo a
own
cada una de sus
national legislations, because
estrategias
each country
territoriales, porque como
has
sabemos,
its
cada
own
país tiene
infrastructures and
unas
resources,
infraestructuras, tiene
so
unos recursos y
it
por tanto
needs to
tenemos que hacer
be
esos
transposed
ajustes.
properly.
¿Cómo
And
se ha
today,
transposicionado
here
esto a nivel nacional?
in
Ahora,
Spain, in
actualmente,
April,
el pasado mes de abril,
the
se
Waste and
aprobó la Ley de
Contaminated
Residuos
Soil
Personas
Law
Contaminadas,
was
que hace gran
approved that
referencia a la
refers
parte de
to food
desperdicio
waste, but
alimentario también,
also
pero
to
a la
all
parte de todo aquel
other
residuo
types
que
of
se
waste,
genera,
such as
incluido la parte
packaging.
de
And this
envases y
is
embalajes.
complemented
Además, esto se va a
with the
complementar
Packaging
con la
Royal
parte del
Decree.
Real
It
Decreto
is
de
still a
Envases,
draft, but
que
we
está
hope
todavía
that the
parado,
bill
pero que
will
se
be
espera que
passed
sea
soon.
aprobado próximamente.
This
Esto, además,
also happens with
también
some
pasa con
other
algunas
European
otras
directives. For
directivas
example,
a nivel europeo,
the
como puede ser la propuesta sobre
proposal
el reglamento de
for
diseño ecológico o la
eco-design
regulación
and a
europea de
recent
nació
European regulation
recientemente, hace
that
unos días,
refers to
en la que
specific
habla de las
definitions for food packaging. For example, reusing, refill, and
o
compostable and biodegradable. The goal of this European framework is to have a homogeneous terminology, because sometimes these terms are confusing for all the players in the value chain, not just for the citizens.
esperemos que con esta normativa sean
However,
reales.
this
Pero como
is
digo,
just a
esta sí que
draft
es un borrador y
that
está en
has not
proceso
been passed
de
yet.
realmente ser aprobada.
We also
Además de todo
have
esto, tenemos
this other
esta otra
lever
palanca de
for
cambio que
change,
estaríamos
that
hablando
is
de esta
the
percepción de los
consumer's
consumidores.
perception,
Cada vez
that tend
vemos
to
mayor
be
exigencia
more and
por
more
parte de los
demanding
consumidores de
when
cara a la
they
elección,
do their
cuando,
shopping
ya sea cuando
or
realizan
when
la compra o
they
ya sea
go
cuando
to
van
a
a pedir
restaurant
los
service.
servicios de restauración.
There are
Entonces,
different
vemos que
types
hay
of
ciertos
consumer
perfiles que
profiles
tienen
that are
una
more
mayor
aware of
sensibilización de
sustainability,
cara a la
and
sostenibilidad,
we'll also
pero
see
también veremos un
that
poquito
there
más
are some
adelante que hay
materials that can be
materiales que
confusing.
pueden ser
For
confusos
example,
y que esto está siendo una tendencia, ¿no? El
there is
cambiar, por
the
ejemplo,
switch from
de plástico a
plastic
cartón. Y
to paper,
podremos, después
and
veremos,
we'll see
ya os digo,
how this can
cómo
impact
esto puede
some
afectar
other
también a otro
indicators.
tipo de
There's
indicadores.
another lever
¿Qué otra
for
palanca de cambio
change, and
tenemos
that's the
actualmente?
price
El aumento del
increase.
precio.
We know
Los
that,
precios han subido
for
notoriamente, nos los he
example, the
dejado algunos
price of
puntos, como puede
paper,
ser el vidrio, el
plastic,
plástico
and
o el
glass
cartón,
have
que son
increased. These are
aquellos
the
de los
main
materiales más
materials used
utilizados en
in
el
the
sector
food industry,
agroalimentario
and
y que
the
están
price
teniendo en torno a un
increase is
40 y
up
un
to
60% de
60%.
aumento en la
So
materia
we have
prima,
this
tanto
increase
en
of
origen
the raw materials
como
and
de
also of the
almidones,
recycled
origen
materials.
reciclado. Esto supone que además de esto,
And
les tenemos que
there
añadir los
has
aumentos de
been
precio
also
del
an
mercadito
increase of
verde
the
por parte del buen
services
investor
of
del vidrio
the
y además
environmental
el nuevo
recycling
impuesto al plástico que
services, and
viene
there's
dado
also
por
a
esta
new
ley ya
tax on
aprobada que os
plastic.
mencionaba anteriormente.
So
¿Esto
there's
qué
a
significa?
cost
Significa
increase
aumentos de costes
everywhere.
a
And
todo,
how can
por
we
todas partes.
reduce
Por lo
this?
tanto, ¿cómo podemos
Well,
reducir esto?
we can
Reduciremos
do
si
this
permitimos ser
by
inteligentes a la hora de
designing
diseñar
packaging
precios en
in a
paquete, ¿no? Si
smart
reducimos la cantidad de
way,
material, si
including
incluimos material de origen reciclado, estaremos pagando
recycled
menos impuesto o menos
elements
punto
or
verde, o
reusing
incluso si
materials
hablamos
as
de
well.
reutilización. Y veremos
Here,
algunos ejemplos.
you can
Os quería
also
dejar aquí
see
también
the status
un
quo
status quo
based
que
on a
hicimos en
study
base a un
that we
estudio
conducted.
de,
This
bueno,
is
es una guía
some
para el
guidelines
diseño
for the
sostenible de envases
sustainable
para el sector
design
alimentario que
of
podéis
packaging.
buscar
It's
en
called
internet, que se
Circular
llama
Pack, and
Circular
we
Pack
published
y que
these guidelines
publicamos
a year ago,
hace un
and
año
they give you
aproximadamente y que creo que os puede
an
dar una visión global
overview of
bastante buena. Aquí os
these
dejo un par de slides
concepts.
para que os hagáis una
Now,
idea.
let me
Bien,
focus
entro
now
dentro de
on
la
the
parte
concept
más
of
de
eco
conceptos, donde
design,
veremos
and we'll
también
look
estrategias que
into
están
some
alineadas con estas
strategies and
normativas, pero también
trends
con las
aligned
tendencias, ¿no?, que
with
estamos viendo.
these laws and
Lo primero de
directives.
todo,
I
quiero que
want
tengamos
you
claro
to
que como
understand
diseñadoras, como
firstly that
diseñadores,
as
tenemos una
designers,
gran
we have
responsabilidad.
a huge
¿Y el motivo de esto?
responsibility,
Porque el
because
80% del
80%
impacto de un
of a
producto
product's
se
impact
determina en la
is
fase de
determined
diseño.
at the
Esto nos
design
lleva
phase.
a tener que
This
tener mucha
means
información de
that
cara
we
a tomar
have
decisiones
to make
responsables
good
que
decisions
al
so
final
we
no
don't have a
causen un
negative
daño
impact
en el
on
medio
the
ambiente de cara a
environment.
futuro. Y
This
esta
is
es
the
precisamente la
definition of
definición de
eco-design.
ecodiseño. Es decir,
Designing
diseñar
to
para
obtain a
obtener un envase
sustainable
sostenible que
packaging
no
that
comprometa
doesn't
al futuro, pero que esté también
jeopardize the
alineado
future, and
con
that
la
is
industria, es decir, que sea
feasible
viable, que sea
and that
factible
is
y que esté
aligned with
alineado
the
con esos
circular
principios de economía
economy
circular que
principles
ahora veremos.
that we'll mention
Ante
later
todo
on.
esto,
One of the key
para
questions
preguntas
is
típicas
whether
surge si
there
hay
are
buenos o
good
malos
and
materiales.
bad
Y la
materials.
respuesta,
And the
como
truth
siempre
is that
decimos,
there
es
are
que no
no
hay verdades
absolute
absolutas. No podemos
truth in
decir
the
que un
sense
material
that
es mejor que otro, porque de lo que
the
siempre
fact that
va a
a material
depender
is good or
es de la
bad will depend on
aplicación.
its
En
application.
este
Here
caso, vemos,
we
por ejemplo,
see
un
PLA,
material como pueda
and
ser el
PLA
PLA, que en un
was
principio sabemos que se
designed
diseñó para las que no lo
to
conocéis, el PLA intenta
replace
sustituir
a
a un plástico de
fossil
origen fósil,
type
pero está hecho
of
con residuos
plastic.
de caña
So it
de
comes
azúcar o
from
residuos que
sugarcane.
vienen de cultivo. Lo que
The
ocurre
problem is that
es
the
que
current
no tenemos las
infrastructures
infraestructuras
don't allow us
actuales
to
para que
recycle
este
this
material se recicle.
material.
Y
And on
tampoco, como os podéis
the left,
imaginar,
we
el envase de
have
izquierda
a
no se va a
packaging
compostar
that
a la vez
is
que
not
una
going to be
pelarza de
compostable.
manzana, por ejemplo, ¿verdad?
So
Pues
we
esto es
are
lo que nos
trying
encontramos, que
to
puede que
innovate
estemos
in
intentando
materials,
innovar en la
but
generación
we
de
are
materiales, pero que sin
creating
embargo estamos
sometimes
generando
waste
residuos
that
que
is
son
worse
peores que los
than
materiales que
that
tenemos
of the
en el
current
mercado.
materials on the
Por eso es
market.
muy
Therefore,
importante
we
que
must
pensemos
always
también
think
en
about
cuál es la
the application. How is that material going to be used? So how do we face this challenge? We think mainly about circular economy and this value chain. So we have to take into account the production throughout the end of the life cycle, such as the transport, the use, the phases prior to manufacturing. All these phases need to be taken into account when assessing the life cycle, when assessing the suppliers, and when assessing the impact of each phase. In this way, at inèdit, at our consulting company, we look at the most critical points and we identify them through a quantitative analysis, and then we propose solutions through design. Another key aspect is the multi-player cooperation. It's important to cooperate with research centers that develop new materials, and we also need to cooperate with washing centers, with logistic centers. Cooperation is absolutely key for these changes to occur. Another key aspect that we tend to forget because of marketing is that we shouldn't just think about the primary packaging, because oftentimes there are changes in the primary packaging that leads to a bad practice in the secondary and tertiary packaging, because the key function, the key role of a packaging is to protect food, and sometimes due to marketing, you will be changing some design aspects, and this means in the end that you're transporting more air, and we are moving those problems to the secondary or tertiary packaging or to other parts of the value chain, such as transport. This is very important to bear in mind, and we need to identify the key aspects in each and every one of these phases. This is the life cycle concept, and one of the initiatives of circular economy is the following. The waste shouldn't just be a resource for someone else. What we really try and do with eco design aligned with the circular economy strategies is to maintain alive those resources as long as possible. This means that we focus on reusing the materials and the reduction of raw materials. And here we can detect some opportunities for improvement, and we can develop ideas aligned with the 7 principles of circular economy. Here you have the list of these 7 principles, such as prioritizing renewable resources. That means that we'll try and avoid using fossil resources because they are not endless. We prefer to use renewable resources. We want to preserve existing resources. We will use waste as resources. We have to rethink the business model. We have to design thinking about the future. This also means including digital technology, collaboration as a key aspect. And number 7 is to measure and communicate. This will come after all the other points to avoid any bad greenwashing practices. Some of these eco strategies that we should consider would be the following: to develop new designs or to optimize the use of resources, use recyclable materials. We need to understand always what happens at the end of the life cycle, and we have to try and extend the product's life as much as possible. And all of
Y ya
this
aquí
is
centrados,
applicable to
claro,
any
esto es
type of
aplicable en
product, but
cualquier
in this
tipología de
case, we
producto, pero en
want to
este caso
apply
lo
it
queremos
to
aplicar a
the
envase
food
alimentario.
packaging.
Entonces, cuando
And
hablamos de esto,
first of all, we
el
have to
primer paso
avoid
es
an
evitar
over
el
packaging,
sobreenvasado. El
excessive
segundo
packaging.
sería
Then we have
priorizar
to
el uso de
prioritize
materiales
the
de origen reciclado,
use of recycled
simplificar
materials.
y
We also
unificar
need
el
to
uso de materiales, es decir,
simplify
hablar de
and
envases
unify materials. So
monomateriales,
we're talking about
simplificar
mono
el diseño
materials. We have to
y
simplify
evitar
the
plásticos de un solo
design
uso,
so that it can be
garantizar
recyclable. We
el
have to
origen
avoid
del material,
non-reusable,
promover la reutilización
non-reusable
y
plastics. We
garantizar
have
la
to guarantee
reutilabilidad.
the origin
Estos
of the
no están
material through
puestos en
certificates,
orden
promote
de
reusing,
prioridad, sino
and
están
also
puestos
guarantee
realmente en
its
orden de factibilidad
recyclability and
de poderlos
compostability.
aplicar. La
Because
reutilización,
reusing,
según
for
la jerarquía
example, in some cases
de
will be
residuos,
number one.
tiene que ser
So
dos. Lo
this
ideal es que
list
hablamos de
is not
priorizar,
in
¿no?
order.
Por
So
eso aquí
we
hablamos de primero
always talk
reducir,
about reducing,
repensar,
rethinking,
unificar y
involving, and
maximizar esa
maximizing.
recuperación de
So
recursos. Por lo tanto, una estrategia de
reusing strategy
reutilización
would mean
estaría la
reducing
primera,
the
que sería
consumption of
la
resources,
reducir, mientras que la
whereas a
estrategia
separate
de
collection of
recogida
packagings
selectiva de envases para
for
su
their
correcta
appropriate
clasificación y su
recycling
correcto
would
reciclaje,
mean
entonces estaríamos
maximizing the
hablando de
recovery of
maximizar la
resources.
recuperación de recursos.
How can we put this
Bien,
into
¿cómo
practice?
materializamos
Well,
esto? Bueno, pues
first we
por un
have to
lado
look at
está a
it
nivel de
from the
producto,
product
a nivel de
level, then the
organización y a nivel de
organization level, and then
estrategia.
the
¿Por qué?
strategy
Porque cuando
level.
hablamos de un
Because
ecodiseño de un envase
when we're
al
talking
uso y
about
de recogida de
eco
un material
packaging, we're
de su
talking
primer
about the
mediano paso,
product per se.
hablaríamos de la
But when
normativa.
we're
Pero cuando ya estamos
looking
hablando
at
de
the
cuantificación ambiental,
environmental
cuando estamos hablando incluso
quantification and
de estrategias,
reusing
modelos de
business
negocio de reutilización,
models,
es cuando vamos intentando entrar en
we
sistemas
are
más ambiciosos desde
referring
las
to
compañías y
the
hablamos de la
organization
organización
and to
y
the
hablamos
strategy
incluso de la
then.
estrategia genérica, ¿no?
I don't have much
Bien,
time
como
left,
voy un poquito justa de
so
tiempo,
I will go
quiero
through
pasar
these
esto de manera
slides
rápida,
quickly.
pero
I'd just
simplemente os
like
quería hablar
to
de la
mention the
metodología que
methodology we
utilizamos para
use
esta
for
parte de
eco
ecodiseño.
design.
Consideramos que es
It's
muy importante
important to have
tener esta
firstly the
parte
design brief
inicial, que sería
because
un
it's
design brief. ¿Por qué?
necessary
Porque lo que
to
necesitamos es tener
have
claras las
clear the product
especificaciones de nuestro
specifications. If
producto.
not, we
Sin eso
won't
no
be
seremos
able
capaces
to do
de
a
diseñar.
proper design.
Y
And then
después ya entramos en
we
las
move
fases
on to
de
the
diseño, que
design
estaríamos hablando de
phases
conocer,
to know, identify,
identificar,
to
idear y
think, and
finalmente resolver
resolve.
o
So
implementar.
first, we
Lo
have to
primero que
define
tenemos que hacer es
the
definir
appropriate
la pregunta
question.
correcta y
And
después ya iremos
knowing
concretando. Por
means
tanto, cuando hablamos de conocer, aquí es
align
una fase en la que nosotros nos
our
alineamos
work
mucho
with
con el
the
equipo de cuantificación
environmental
ambiental porque nos
quantification
permite,
team
como os
so
decía
that we
antes,
can
tener
quantify
de manera cuantificada
certain
ciertos
items
aspectos e
and
incluso definir
define KPIs
indicadores
for the
que nos
whole project.
acompañarán a lo largo de todos los proyectos, ¿no?
Once we have
Una vez
drawn
extraemos
the
las conclusiones y
conclusions
entendemos
about
qué
the
puntos
key
son más
points,
críticos,
then
empezamos a
we
investigar
look
y a
for
idear
solutions
cuáles son
and
las
then
soluciones para finalmente
we
llevarlas a
develop those
cabo junto
solutions
a las
together
empresas
with
que
our
parten
clients.
de este
I would
programa.
like to show you
Y ahora os
now
quiero
some
enseñar algunos
success
casos de
stories where
éxito
we
donde
have
ya se están
implemented
empezando
some of
a
these
implementar
strategies.
algunas estrategias.
I mentioned
Antes os
before
mencionaba el tema de la
some
legislación.
laws,
Todas las
and we
legislaciones que
see
estamos
that the
viendo, estamos viendo
legislation
que
in
puntean en
general
especial
is focusing
las
on
estrategias de
reusing.
reutilización.
They
Quieren
want
hacer
to
un
promote
especial esfuerzo
this
en
type
incentivar
of
esta tipología
strategy.
de estrategias
In
y es
fact,
así
there are
tanto que incluso se han puesto
goals,
objetivos, sobre todo
specific
para
goals
envases de bebidas,
for
de cara a reutilizar tanto en la venta como,
reusing the
ojo,
packaging
en
of
retail también. Es decir,
drinks
de aquí
in
a
wholesale
unos
and
año y medio o
retail.
así, tendremos
So
que ver
in
en los
retail stores,
establecimientos la
in
opción de
a year's
comprar
time, more or less,
bebidas
we should be able
en
to
envases
buy drinks
reutilizables.
in
Además,
reusable
esto también
bottles
está
or
apareciendo
packaging. And the same is
para el
happening
tema de
with
comida.
food,
¿Vale?
for
Ya vemos como,
example,
por ejemplo,
in
en
Germany.
Alemania todos los
All the
establecimientos, por obligatoriedad
takeaway
que
restaurants
tengan
must
servicio de takeaway,
offer
tienen que
a
tener al menos una
reusable
opción de envase
container
reutilizable.
option. And
Además,
in
en
Spain,
España, gracias a esta ley que os comentaba,
starting on
que ha salido
January the
aprobada, a
1st,
partir del 1 de
if
enero,
we
si
go
vamos como
to
consumidores a un establecimiento
a
o si es que tenéis
retailer or
establecimientos,
to a
en
restaurant,
el ticket tendrá que
the
aparecer
ticket they should include the cost of the packaging. So if you go to a shop to buy a salad, you will have the price of the salad and of the packaging. The same goes for a beer and all the other food items. And this is done to promote reusable packaging. You know what happened with the plastic bags in supermarkets that started to charge for them. The goal, or one of the big claims, is that in 2030, all the packaging should be reusable or 100% recyclable. So reusing is a key concept. This is a project that we launched together with Arias and Boomerang. Boomerang is a startup from Barcelona. And if you go to Barcelona Sands train station, you can already buy a salad in a reusable packaging that can be returned through Boomerang's app, and you can return it not just at the Barcelona train station, but also at other stations in other cities. In this way, we want to see whether the packaging, this type of packaging, is really returned. We want to quantify also the environmental benefits. The return reusing system is well known in Europe. And according to the law, there is a set of goals for separate collection, and if these goals are not met, then there'll be an SDR system. That's a return system that has already been implemented in other European countries. I mentioned before the secondary packaging that can become the primary packaging. According to the royal decree that is pending its approval, includes that fruit and vegetables will have to be sold in bulk if they weigh less than 1.5 kilos. And this will be changing many habits at wholesalers, retailers, and also for the consumers. And this has an impact, not just because of the packaging, but because of the food waste. Because if you have a packaging with 4 apples and one of the apple has gone off, then that whole package is withdrawn by the supermarket. Here you have an example from Sweden. They use these boxes, usable boxes, and they are used throughout the whole value chain, from the producer to the retailers. And through traceability systems, they can identify the location of the boxes. And we are talking about reducing the environmental risk. And in this way, we see initiatives such as this one, where we have within the restaurants and retailers these water services, because according to the law, now free water has to be offered at all restaurants in Spain. Then we also have to think about how we can design items for them to be easily recycled. Here we see a film of paper, of cardboard, and a film of plastic, so that there is no cross-contamination, but this film can be separated, can be peeled off. However, if the consumer doesn't separate this plastic film from the paper container, the risk is that this container, paper container, won't be recycled at the recycling plants. because when you have these two items glued together, the recycling won't be possible. Now, let me show you
No sé si ahora puedo pasar.
another
Sí, vale. Y luego lo que
aspect,
les comentaba antes, ¿no?
that
Esta
is
tendencia de pasar
the
también de
trend,
materiales plásticos
this
a
move
materiales de
towards
cartón,
paper instead
con el
of
objetivo
plastic.
de,
This is a project we're
este es un proyecto que
developing
estamos haciendo
together
con
with
Asaica,
SAICA, and the
pero ya
goal
hay otros que
is
están en el
to
mercado, ¿no? Pero el objetivo es
eliminate
eliminar, por ejemplo, el poliestireno de
expanded
alta, perdón, el poliestireno es por ejemplo, que
polystyrene
se utiliza
that is
para mucho
used
transporte
for
en frío,
cold transport, and we're
tratar ver
thinking
cómo esto
about
puede pasar al
new
cartón y pensaremos, claro,
methods.
pero
But of course,
el Porex es mucho más ligero que
Porex
el cartón.
is lighter
Y
than
ahora, lo que
Spain.
pasa
But
con el
however,
Porex,
if we don't have an appropriate management of this material,
pues realmente
then
aquí tenemos estos
it's not
problemas de gestión, ¿no? De reciclaje.
recyclable.
Y
And
además,
Porex
como os decía antes, es el
has
Porex
a
al final viene
fossil
de origen
origin,
fósil,
whereas
mientras que este vendría
these
de
other
origen
materials
reciclado,
will
ambas.
be
Me quedo sin
recyclable. All right,
tiempo, os
so
dejo
I've run out
esto
of
aquí
time.
simplemente
I'm
para ir cerrando.
just going to show you
Hablamos
some
de
few
simplificar, de cuantificar,
examples
etcétera, pero
quickly.
bueno, esto lo
I
veréis.
haven't calculated
Simplemente es que he calculado
the
mal, un
time
poco como podéis
properly,
ver,
but
pero
it's
al final es la
important to
importancia de
look at
conocer
the
lo que
difference
hacer y
between
cómo
seeming
podemos realmente
sustainable and really being
medirlo. Y
sustainable.
entonces,
We have
si
to be
pensamos, tenemos que ser
very
muy conscientes de que
aware
una
of
huella de
the
carbono nos
carbon
puede dar mucha
footprint
información para una
so that we
correcta,
can make a
o sea, para una
better
correcta toma de decisiones, ¿no? Por tanto,
decision.
yo os digo, primero,
First, we have
reducir
to
el
reduce the
consumo de
consumption of
recursos,
resources. We have to
reforestar, y sobre todo
rethink the
implicar a
resources so
todos
that
los
they're more
entes de la
circular, and
cadena
we
de
have to
valor para
involve
pedirles
all the
información de
players in
qué
the
nos están
value
pidiendo como
chain, and we
envases,
also
pero
need the
también
involvement
pedir
of
esa información
consumers
por parte de
so
los
that we
consumidores
can have
para ir
more
hacia modelos de
sustainable
negocio más
business
sostenibles como
models
pueda ser
based
la
on
reciclación, por
reusing and
ejemplo.
recycling. So
Y nada,
that's
pues
all.
con
You
esto
have
me
my
quedo
contact
aquí. Si
details if
tenéis
you'd like any
alguna
further
pregunta.
information. Thank you very much, Sofía. Your presentation was really interesting. You have given us a lot of information about new possibilities for the future. I will now give the floor to Mariana. Thank you, Barbara. And thank you, Fundesplai, for inviting me here today at ELISAVA. We are working on these topics, and I think that Sofia's introduction has been very appropriate, and I'll be skipping some items. In any case, it's important to bear in mind that design is key to bring about these changes. When we realize that our food system is an anachronic food system that needs to be reviewed, because we need to locate all those aspects that can be improved. For example, Sofia mentioned supermarkets and the packaging at retailers to try also as a consumer to reduce waste at home. And I am going to focus on food design as an agent for change and an aspect that links food and gastronomy, because very often when we refer to gastronomy, we often think about haute cuisine, but gastronomy is the relationship that everybody has with food, what we eat and where we eat. And now I am going to show you this aspect from a creative standpoint. I'm going to share my screen with you. We will talk about eco-design and sustainability associated with food design. This slide is blank on purpose because what we face now is unknown. But look at this. This is an image of an audience looking at a painting, and that's the Gioconda. This is from the Louvre Museum, and I don't know whether you are aware of the fact that in 1911 the Gioconda was stolen. And as Susan Gobar says, in 1911, the Gioconda was missing for 2 years, and more people went to stare at the blank space than had gone to look at the masterpiece in the 12 previous years. What does this mean? Very often, when we don't know what's going to happen, this makes us feel uncertain, but at the same time, we want to know what's going to happen. And this also uh, gives rise to some fear. And food design is something that everybody talks about, but nobody really knows what it is. So I just wanted to give you a context to understand food design and so that you know where we're heading to. Food design is based on eco design, and this is also related to sustainability because food design and eco design have to be sustainability. So this is inherent. And food design is also transdisciplinary. This means that it works with many different disciplines, and you have many different specialists, and everybody gets to know about all the other disciplines so that we can have a holistic view of everything. But food design is not food stylism. Very often, we hear that food design is creating pretty plates, but that's what chefs do. Many people think that Ferran Adrià could be a food designer. He's one of the greatest and most creative chefs in the world of cuisine, but he wouldn't be who he is without these beautiful creative photographs. So we have this transdisciplinary field where you have this communication of food. So food design is design at the service of eating, cooking, servicing, or distributing or experiencing food. We design product spaces, interactive experiences, and many, many other things. But food design is mainly any project that will lead to a change of habits, to a social change that it will improve the food system. So food design is also education. Why? Well, because those who focus on food design haven't really studied food design. They have studied other areas of design, and little by little, they've started to work in food design, and they have been working together with the food industry and sharing their expertise. And at ELISAVA, we have some specific courses where we train our students in food design. Here we have Fabio Parasecoli, one of our experts who organized a workshop on bread and tomato. Or here we have Lucky Huber, who was the first designer that the Boyi restaurant had to create objects that help cook better. Thomas Anes from the Alicia Foundation, or Martí Alice. We also organize creative sessions with students, and students focus on the key questions to find solutions for the food system. We also have discussions and conferences with experts, and now I will show you a short video of a group of students that finished their degree in June, and this is a end of year project together with Seyer de Can Roca. All right. So
Bien.
these projects
Estos proyectos plantean
propose
medios
different
de
tools,
herramientas
educational tools,
lúdico-educativas
fun
para el ámbito de la
tools,
educación,
and then
hasta
also
polvos, colorantes
colorings that
surgidos
come
el
from the
deshidratar
dehydration
residuos de
of
los
waste
mercados de distintos
food in
alimentos para crear una gama
markets,
de
and that can
productos
be
que se pueden
used in
reutilizar
cuisine.
para cualquiera en las cocinas,
Also, objects such as
objetos
this
que
one.
son mucho
I
más
am Diego, and I am a designer, and Jorge and I are an industrial kitchen, and we're going to present a project that joins design and gastronomy. With this new tool, we can separate a taste and a flavor and smell. We are going to reproduce a dish based on this concept and this tool that separates taste and smell. This is a tool that has been developed together with jurors so that we can have a microfusion reproducible tool. We invite to change, and with just one drop, we can create something new. This project was very speculative, but it refers to food sovereignty. And this is a documentary that you will see soon on the media, and it refers to milk farms that are now closing down because the system is leading to the closing down of small producers. And food design is an agent for change. We design new services and products and experiences to promote change, and we work at the level of sustainable agriculture and sustainable cuisine. And all of this creates organic waste, and this waste can go back to the farm and be recycled, and it can also be used to create new organic materials. And there are new materials, for example, a liquid that is eatable, and new services such as My Real Food, so that we understand which is the best food available. There are also other experiences such as designing new edible products. For example, there's a project where children are eating something that they already knew, but that has a very different nutritional, sustainable profile. So we have a new product, and we have invited children to try it. What is it? Are they chicken nuggets? And it's got ketchup. So the children don't really know that instead of chicken nuggets, they're eating vegetable protein. Those nuggets are made of vegetable protein. So these are new experiences that lead us to promote change. And now I would like to speak about the new organic materials, because here today we are referring to eco design, and we have some projects that are very much related to this topic. We'll start with this project where this fruit waste is replaced with this object that has been made at the San Juan Sandadeo Hospital, and this has been created at ELISAVA. And the student that conducted this project was Elizabeth Sebastian. We know that the hospital environment is very tough, But here we see the changes made by this children's hospital, the San Joan, the Deu Hospital, and we have the combination of a robotic arm with food design to generate zero waste. So it's an object that helps children at different levels. And this robotic arm, collects all the vegetable waste from fruits and vegetables and creates shapes. On the one hand, it's giving fruit to the children, and with the waste, it creates shapes in the form of the organs of the body. So the children receive these toys, these shapes of parts of the body, and this makes them understand better what they are experiencing at the hospital, their condition. In this way, they understand better the surgery they will be having, and that there are different machines at the hospital. This is not a project that has been implemented, and in this case, we do have, however, this robotic arm that is giving fruit to the children. It's a robot in an area where different tests are made. Here we have different phases of the project, and the objects have different colors depending on the part of the body, and the children play with them. Here we have the process of creating objects with organic materials. So here we see a sustainable object, but it also has an emotional, psychological impact that's positive for the children. So children understand better the situation. There's another project that's called Ephemeris, and milk casein is transformed into a thread for fashion to create sweaters, skirts, and other garments. And waste is a design error. This project is within the engineering master's degree, and the goal is to work with milk fiber to create a milk thread, and in the end you have a thread that you can use to create garments. Another interesting project refers to organic waste in supermarkets that is collected to create a bioplastic. This project is called Agro, and the goal is to create workshops and working with circular economy at markets. This is a cooperation project between ELISAVA and SPY Sucre. We know how in the markets every store has to look full so that it's more appealing. But the problem is that there's no recycling, and 76% of organic waste is not recycled. So the idea is to collect that waste to create a bioplastic. And a bioplastic is a type of plastic that is derived from vegetable products. Vegetable waste is mixed with different products so that they have a plastic consistency. This can be, for example, white vinegar, water, and corn. This is the process. You can see it online. You will see here how it works. The plastic gets dry, and then it becomes this type of material. There are many different types of organic waste that can lead us to create this product, and it has a durability of about 4 months. Of course, it does disintegrate with water. It has a resistance of 2 kilos, and the durability is 2 years or 4 months. in perfect condition. With laser, you can create a sort of paper, and Agro has now produced a kit that is available online. And on the one hand, they organize many workshops, and then you can also create bioplastic at home with your own waste. And this was the design market last weekend. These fabrics to design garments, they were also at the Dubai Design Week. Another example of biomaterials is based on artichokes, because artichoke waste is 70% of the product. We just use 30% of artichoke, and this is Be Green, this new product.
JC on the track, boy.
So Be Green
Bien, Be Green, como habéis visto,
is the result of creating a biomaterial with artichoke waste, and it's a material that helps to create packaging or serviettes. It can be washed. It has the feel of leather, but it's elastic, so that it can be used for different types of uses. Now, pluma is another example. We're talking about a squid, and we know how fish is all very often transported in pork span boxes, and here we use the quill, the feather of the squid to create this material. It's a type of paper for different uses, and this is circular economy. And the waste of squid had never been used before, and now we can create these objects, 3 different uses, and there are many other possibilities available. Now, lastly, tell you about Voila. This is a very special case. This is one of the first projects of food design that we had at ELISAVA in 2018. And the student determined that he wanted to change non-reusable cutlery and replace them with reusable ones. And throughout the project, we always look at potential spin-offs and startups. And this one, however, was more speculative. And the question was, do you want to develop this? Because there are similar projects already, but none of them had any success. And Laura Gisbert, the student, created this plan, and then we had this chef on board, because a designer doesn't always know what would be the perfect shape for cutlery. And Spice Sucra has an entity in Mexico called Cuina. He's one of the founders, and together we started with this edible cutlery, and now you have it available everywhere. It's a new edible cutlery. You have spoons and many other utensils, and for example, ice cream sticks or spoons for coffee, stirrers, and you can do many things. because I went to a conference and I could see people eating their ice cream with these edible spoons. And last Thursday, Joe Weiss, the Catalan Xavi Moron, the chef, created a menu for the Catalan government institution, the Christmas dinner with these cutlery. So things can be different. And the idea is to disseminate these projects. And very often, the main way of disseminating these projects is through awards with money prizes that help create startups. And there are organizations such as FOR. I am one of the founders, and there are many other organizations that are working along these lines. And the conclusion is that we have been working and living for many years in a world where gastronomy, design, and all other disciplines were all separate, whereas the idea now is to put all these disciplines together. And what's important is always to ask questions. When you go to a restaurant and you get zucchini in December, then you can ask, isn't zucchini a warm season vegetable? If we ask this type of questions, then we can help to produce this change. And if Obama could become president of the US, it's not yes, we can anymore, it's yes, we do. So we're going to work together to make this change come about. Thank you very much once again, Fundesplai, for allowing me to explain this here today. Thank you. Thank you very much, Mariana. You have defined very well and you have given us the context of food design as an agent for change through all these wonderful examples of Big Green, Agro, and Pluma. It's very interesting. We will see whether there are any questions. As consumers, how can we get information about the best biomaterials with the lowest environmental impact? So the question is, where is this information available? Then there's another question. Shouldn't we learn to make biomaterials at home? Wouldn't that be a good idea?
Ale, si quieres,
Because I know that Mariana told us about the agro workshops. Yes, online at the agro website, you can see how you can make biomaterials at home. It's not at all difficult. It's very simple. What's important is to reduce waste at home. And the first question we need to raise is how and what are we going to buy? We are all making decisions when we go shopping. One decision can be to buy fruit and vegetables from the farmer directly instead of buying them at the supermarket. But if that is not a possibility, then when we are at the supermarket and we see all the products that are there available, we can make good decisions because we can decide to buy or not to buy something based on our principles and based also on our principles. We can make different decisions with regard to the waste we create at home. And the most usual question is, how can we find the time to do that? Well, As
Pero bueno,
Sofía said
haciendo
before
referencia a lo que
we
decía Sofía
would go
antes,
to the
antes íbamos al
supermarket
supermercado,
and
llenábamos de
get
bolsas de
tons
plástico,
of
ahora llevamos nuestra propia bolsa.
plastic
Si hemos
bags, but
aprendido a
now
hacer
we
eso,
take our
también por
own
la calle no
bags so
había
that
casi
we
papeleras y ahora hay
don't have
papeleras con
to
bolsas de
buy
basura.
any
O
plastic
sea que
bags.
las
If we
cosas
want
cambian
things
y si
to
nosotros queremos que
change,
cambien, van a
then
cambiar más y
things
más
will
rápido.
change.
Y es
And if
necesario que
we
estemos
want to
en
do
ello.
it, we
Entonces, si
can do
queremos
it and
hacerlo,
we
podemos
will
optar
do
por
it.
plásticos o
And
cualquier
this
tipo
goes for all
de
type of waste.
manipulación con los
Thank you very
residuos.
much, Mariana, for your
Ok,
reply.
muchas gracias,
I fully
Mariana. Sí,
agree
sí,
with you.
totalmente,
What about
totalmente de
you,
acuerdo.
Sophia? I think you wanted to say
Sofía, ¿nos
something.
querías decir
Yes, I wanted
algo?
to mention
Sí, yo quería
that
comentar
we are
que al final
referring
hablamos
here
de
to
biomateriales
biomaterials that
y
we have to
ojo
be
porque
careful
existe un gran
because
rango, ¿no?
there
Cuando
is
hablamos
a
de
wide
biobasado,
range
no es
of
lo mismo el
biomaterials,
origen
and
que
it's
pensar en
also
lo que pasa al
important to
final
see
del
what
ciclo de vida.
happens
Entonces,
at
cuando estamos
the
hablando de
beginning
envases que
or
puedan
the
ser
end
compostables, porque
of the
biodegradable lo es
life
todo. También
cycle.
nosotros
So
con
what's
plástico,
important
veremos cuánto
is
tiempo
to
se va
focus
a
on
biodegradar
how a
y qué
product
efectos va a causar
can
en
be
el medio ambiente, ¿no? Entonces, yo os
biodegraded
diría,
and what
bueno,
will be its
totalmente
impact.
de
And I
acuerdo
agree
con lo
with
que acaba de
Mariana
comentar
because
Mariana, es decir, si nosotras
as
como
consumers, we
consumidoras y como
need to
consumidores
make
hacemos
responsible
elecciones responsables,
decisions.
lo primero
We have
es
to
intentar
take
reducir, es
our
decir, ir
own
con nuestros propios envases
containers
en
and
caso de que
bags
esto no es
and
posible, porque
packaging,
muchos
but that's
productos
not always
no
possible. But at
consiguen.
the
Yo os diría
supermarket,
una cosa, en los supermercados
retailers
tienen los
must
retailers la obligatoriedad de pedir
request
las
from their
fichas
suppliers
técnicas a sus
their
proveedores.
data
¿Qué
sheets. What
significa
do
esto?
I
Que en este caso no
mean
nos vamos a
by that?
encontrar,
Well,
por
one
desgracia,
of
pero una
the
de
initiatives that
las
Mariana
alternativas que
has
acabamos de ver, por
shown
ejemplo, por
us
Mariana, ¿no? Porque esto
can
igual lo
be
encontramos más en puntos
seen
de
with
consumo, como
Voila
era el caso
at
de Voila, pero en lo que es
restaurants,
el punto de venta,
but
¿no? Un paquete de arroz,
with their
ya si nos dicen que es un
rice
plástico,
packaging, it's
entonces
important, for
miremos este el
example,
sello de
to
compost,
look
porque
at
los
the
retailers piden a gran escala y si
compostable
piden a gran escala,
information,
sí
and
pueden demandar,
supermarkets and
solicitar
retailers
a sus
can
proveedores
request
que tengan
those
estos
seals
sellos,
that
como pueda
refer
ser el origen,
to
pero sobre
the
todo qué pasa al
materials,
final en esta
and
bebida, ¿no?
you have,
Y
for
ahí es
example,
donde
the
existen sellos como puede
compostability
ser el sello
seal.
de
So,
compostabilidad.
first of all, it's
Entonces, yo os diría que
important
lo
to
primero,
understand the
informarnos bien
meaning of
de
each
qué significa
concept.
cada uno de estos
And
conceptos
secondly, we
y
also
después
need to
que nos
pay
fijemos también,
attention
¿no?
to
Como consumidores
this
en esta
information
información que se nos
that
puede
can be available. Wonderful.
Vale,
Thank you
perfecto. Bueno,
very
entonces
much.
lo
I would
dejamos
like to
aquí. Muchas
thank the
gracias a también a
speakers
todos los
and our
asistentes que
audience for
nos han
joining
estado
here
acompañando esta
today.
jornada.
And I'd like
Y
to
bueno, que
wish
pasen
you
buenas
a
tardes y buenas
very
fiestas también.
nice holiday.
¿Vale?
Thank
Muchas
you. Thank you
gracias.
very much.
Adiós.
Goodbye.
Gracias, Bárbara.
A vosotras.